One of my goals for this series is to teach people how to analyze their own gameplay. No number of examples will help if you can't develop your reasoning process and arrive at conclusions on your own. And so the first thing we need to talk about is how to think about the game. Winning is the ultimate goal, but many different factors determine whether a game is lost or won, so you can't just look at the outcome of a single game and use that to decide whether or not your decisions were good or bad. We need something with a bit more granularity, so I'm going to introduce the concept of resources. Resources are things you spend to achieve the outcomes you want. There are three main resources that factor into our analysis. The first and most obvious one is HP. Every ship in the game has an HP pool. When you run out of HP, your ship is destroyed and you're unable to further impact the game. HP is a win condition in that when you bring the HP of every enemy ship to 0, you win the game. The second is capture points. Capture points are also a win condition. When you hit 1,000 points or the enemy hits 0 points, you win the game. When you hit 0 points or the enemy hits 1,000 points, you lose. But it's important to note that unless one of these conditions is met, or the match timer runs out, capture points don't otherwise impact the game. The third resource is time. The idea of time as a resource is more abstract, in that you can't directly use time to win the game. Rather, time is a requirement to make any sort of decision at all. Broadly speaking, it takes time for ships to travel to different points on the map, for shells and torpedoes to hit their targets, and to cap the point. This brings me to my final point. Every decision you make in World of Warships makes trades between these three resources. Not all trades are equal. For example, a player who YOLOs into the cap trades all of his HP and doesn't get much in return. The right decision is the one that gets you the best deal possible. But the value of each resource depends on the situation. In general, the value of each resource increases the less you have of it. A battleship player can spend his HP, for example, by tanking for the team, much more freely than you as a destroyer player can, because he has a lot more of it. Because every decision has a cost that you have to pay using these resources, having more resources gives you more options, whereas having fewer resources restricts your options. Disengaging from combat is hard. If you fire your guns, it takes 20 seconds for you to clear your spotting penalty. In that time, if there are ships that can fire on you nearby, you'll take damage from them until you can get undetected again. That's why the first and most important skill you have to develop as a destroyer player is to have the discipline to hold your fire when the trade won't be favorable. I don't want to fight the Kaparovsk here. I'm capping the point and don't want to get reset. But if he were to charge in, we can take the fight at close range where the trade is more favorable, and because we have teammates to support us nearby. Since he's turning away though, we can choose simply not to engage. Generally, when you're outmatched, you have to disengage. In this clip, I'm contesting the cap when a Haraguma pops up. Note how I'm doing it from the corner opposite from where I expect the Seattle, or any other radar cruisers to be. This angle also gives good vision of their team. I turn away without firing because I don't want the spotting penalty. When the island breaks line of sight, I'm undetected and relatively safe again. Firing my guns here would probably do 1,000 to 3,000 damage to the Haraguma, but the extra salvos I would take from their team probably wouldn't make it worth it. The team does about 5k to their Haraguma and he blows the smoke, so that was pretty much the best outcome we could have gotten here. But even though we got pushed out of the cap, we can still stay nearby and provide vision for our teammates. By staying in this position, even though we can't contest the cap anymore, we also deny the ability of the enemy destroyers to push up and start torpedoing our team from this angle. If the team trades well enough on this side, we can potentially re-enter the cap at a later point. Sometimes you have to make the decision not only to disengage, but to completely leave a flank. In this clip, the A point is lost. The enemy not only outnumbers us on this flank, but already has a ship in the cap. Our Worcester just uses radar, so we have no means of detecting the destroyers at A for at least another 2 minutes. Pushing into the cap is too risky. It's too likely that our Worcester eats torpedoes and dies, and at close range he'll lose it to Des Moines as well. I call for the rotate to mid, where we can support a push for B, where we do have an advantage, or at least take a better fight. We give up on A and let the enemy team have some cap points, but it's important to recognize when you can't win, and then to cut your losses as soon as possible. This minimizes the HP as well as time that you lose. Fast forward a bit and we see that in ranked and randoms, coordination is always a bit iffy. The Worcester took a little longer than we'd like in getting over here, and the Shima is still in the west where it's unlikely he'll be able to do anything. With the help of RPF, we catch the enemy Yueyang. We have more HP than him as well as support from our teammates, so I close the distance and go for the kill. Since the Yueyang has deep water torpedoes, we don't have to worry about angling those in. I also zoom out 1 tick. I recommend using the adaptive crosshair. The 10 tick mark is calibrated for an enemy moving at 30 knots perpendicular to you, so you can use that information to help you aim. Just like that, we have a ship advantage and the points are tied up. In Ranked, every ship is worth 100 cap points regardless of class. You gain 40 for a kill and lose 60 for a death, so staying alive is doubly important. Many factors decide whether or not a fight will end in your favor, though it generally boils down to the difference between the amount of damage taken and the amount of damage received. Positioning is the primary means by which you can control these factors in your favor. There's a lot going on in this clip, but I'm taking advantage of the island so that I can fight this Yueyang while shielded from the rest of his team, as well as any torpedoes, whereas my team is able to shoot him freely. He grounds himself here, which seals his fate, but either way we were getting the upper hand in that engagement. Notice how I slow down. I'm safe from his entire team except for that Montana and so we can just stop and farm him. I also enter free view in between every salvo, and constantly check the minimap for any new threats. This gives you better situational awareness. The Shimakaze pops up, and so we engage the Shima because we still have team support, and because our guns are much more effective. We do have to be careful of torpedoes though, and so I go nose in. In general, you can't force these favorable situations to occur. You can only put yourself in a situation where the enemy can't take advantage of you, and then wait for the enemy to make mistakes which you can punish. Sometimes you can provoke the enemy into making mistakes though. Based on the minimap, I can tell that our team still has really good angles to support me, so I open up on this gearing. The Conqueror pops up though, and we get somewhat lucky in that we don't take more damage from his HE. We smoke up because there is the possibility that he tries to rush us, and so he turns away. We don't want to stay in the smoke though, and since we force the enemy gearing back, there's the possibility of pushing towards the north end of the AB cap. However, the Conqueror seems to be moving toward the cap as well, so he'll probably be able to stop us. So we choose only to feint towards the cap, while actually turning around. The enemy Conqueror wants to kill us because he thinks we're going into the cap, but because he's in a battleship and can easily change course, if he moves into the cap, he's fully committed. Using the smoke we already laid, and the fact that our own Yamato and Conqueror are within spotting distance of him, we can farm him down. We don't want to sit in the smoke itself because if he rushes us, it's too close, and because the smoke position is also vulnerable to torpedoes. Note how since my positioning is already ideal, just slightly beyond my surface detection range from the Conqueror in case I need to stop firing and stealth up, I'm moving at half speed in order to just maintain that distance. At this point he's pretty much doomed. Because the Conqueror has a massive heal, I don't value getting additional fires on him that highly, and so I just continue to shoot his superstructure. Even though the enemy team had the cap advantage for a lot of the game, because of the kills that our team managed to claim, we have the points lead. Though the Conqueror denied us from going to the AB caps, he paid for it with his life, which wasn't a good trade for him. The other tool that you have to swing fights in your favor is smoke. However, you can only smoke and still shoot the enemy if someone else is spotting for you, and these situations are somewhat rare because you, as the destroyer, are often doing a lot of the spotting. This Haruguma player is much too far up, and since our team is so close to him, we can smoke up. I don't want to die to torpedoes though, so I slow down to maintain some distance between our ships, and angle nose in. Smoke usage is complicated, and I'll go into more detail on it in the next episode. Here's another example from the same game, but this time I choose to delay the smoke in order to guarantee the kill on the enemy Shimakaze. Unfortunately, we do take a lot of damage from the Yamato and Conqueror, but thanks to some good RNG, we do survive, and have the destroyer advantage for our team in a game which is very battleship heavy.